Good morning, everyone. I am Taylor Post, Swiftland's Office Manager, and I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar, Google Scholar Like a Rockstar, Part 2, and today's presenter, Dr. Stephanie Rollins. Dr. Stephanie Rollins is a research and writing specialist at the Air University Press at Maxwell Air Force Base. She is also an adjunct professor for the University of Alabama and teaches digital reference, collection development, and organization of information, among other courses. Stephanie serves on both regional and state library committees, and she has 23 years of experience in academic and special libraries. She holds a BA in English from Auburn University, a master's degree in library service, and a doctorate in public administration, both from the University of Alabama. Please welcome Dr. Stephanie Rollins and enjoy her webinar. Stephanie?
Thank you so much, Taylor. I'm so excited today to talk to you guys about Google Scholar Like a Rockstar Part 2 so you can continue to impress your patrons, your family, your staff, on your faculty, your administrators, on how you can look like a rock star teaching them Google Scholar. It's also going to teach you some of the techniques and different things with Google Scholar that we didn't get to cover last time. So last time what we talked about was kind of how to get started with Google Scholar, how you do a simple search, how you translate what your record looks like, how you can adjust your settings, like your libraries and your languages, some smart search shortcuts, and some advanced searching, also how to use Scholar citations to find more articles and how to cite. So if you're interested in those, please look at the previous recording. Today we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about how you set up a Google Scholar account if you don't have one. And I'll talk you through the process. With Google Scholar, you don't necessarily have to have an account for several of the features, but several of them you do, and I will highlight that at the point that that happens. How do you set up a research alert and possibly edit it if you need to? How you can track when a specific paper that you're interested in, maybe it's this person in the field who writes about these new techniques and discoveries in diabetes, and you want to track whenever that paper has been mentioned, or you're a researcher and you work for an academic institution, and you want to know when your paper has been cited because you need that information for promotion and tenure. Also, if you want to track a specific author, there's an author in the field that you follow, maybe in librarianship or medical or legal or whatever it might be, you can track that author. What is my library? That's a way you can store articles. We'll talk more about that. And how do you set that up? How do you add or remove an article from that? You don't want it anymore. How do you add it or how do you remove it? How do you find an article? You can take advantage of Google's fantastic search capabilities to find articles within your library, especially if it's huge. How do you add labels to your library? This is going to help you organize your library. You can also edit them and delete them. How can you get citations generated from your library? We'll talk about that. If you are a published author or you have a faculty member or you have somebody come into your public library that wants to create an author profile, you can definitely do that, and you can make it private or you can make it public. We'll talk briefly about metrics. This is something that's really important to academic faculty. They can definitely help for promotion and tenure, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how you can find those in Google Scholar. And then at the end, there's a new plugin for Google Scholar, and it's a button that you can use while you're searching Google or Bing or whatever search engine you're in, and it will search Google Scholar at the same time. It's a really cool plugin that's going to help you with having Google Scholar right there on your desktop without having to actually go to Google Scholar, which is nice. So very quickly, if you didn't attend the last session, and it's been a while since you've looked at Google Scholar, I just want to talk to you very briefly about what Google Scholar is. And this is according to Google, so I went with them because they're going to have the best definition. But what does Google Scholar have? Google Scholar includes journal and conference papers, theses and dissertations. They have books, they have preprints, they have abstracts, technical reports, and a bunch of other scholarly things that from think tanks and different things you wouldn't think about. All different areas of research. So it's fantastic because Google Scholar is multidisciplinary. If you search library databases, sometimes you won't find things, but you will in Google Scholar because it includes things that your library databases might not have. You'll see different academic publishers, professional societies. You'll see sometimes entire university repositories or special collections, as well as scholarly articles that are available across the web. So why would you want to use Google Scholar? There's a high number of credible, scholarly, interdisciplinary resources like I just talked about. There's some pros and cons for using Google Scholar. The con to that is that it doesn't include all reliable material, right? It doesn't include all resources in the entire world. Google would love that. We would love that, right? But it doesn't include everything. There's still things behind a library database or a paywall. And there's no published list of sources known in Google. We don't know everything that Google has because that's proprietary. They don't tell us. They have a powerful cited by tool, so you can get Google Scholar to cite your research for you. Now, the con is it's not perfect. A lot of times there can be computer errors because sometimes the records aren't entered by humans; it's done by a computer. So you still have to double check your citation, but it's a great start, right? You can find a lot more than databases. We talked about that just a second ago. But the unfortunate thing is you can't limit by source type. In the advanced search, like we talked about last time, you can limit by title of journal, but you can't limit if you want a book, if you want a conference report. Those options are not available. Book, obviously not because they have Google Books. That makes sense. But you can limit by you can limit by the title of the magazine, but that's about it. It's got that easy to use interface that we love. It's clean, it's Google, but it's the Scholar version. It's very easy to use. One of the things that you might struggle with, you as a librarian or your students or your faculty, is that the peer review is indeterminate. We can't necessarily tell. Google Scholar says it's scholarly, but you still have to run it through your evaluation process and determine that. It's not necessarily that you can trust this article to be scholarly. Um, it's something that you definitely need to look at. It will, like we said, generate citations. The other thing about Google Scholar is the rank is based on a proprietary algorithm. We don't know how Google ranks things, but it's based on the number of times something is cited and then some sort of relevance that we don't know about. So that can be kind of hard sometimes when you're looking for something. The thing that's cited the most is going to come up to the top. And again, it may not be the best resource. It could just be the one that's cited the most, as in, don't do this, and that's why it's cited so much. So it may not be the best article. Google Scholar is fantastic for searching for those citation searches when you get somebody that comes up and says, I know it's this author and I know it has something about leadership in the title. You can look for known titles of articles and papers. Another con is that unfortunately Google Scholar will give you a citation for the article, but sometimes it's behind a library database, right? And you have to log in, you have to have an affiliation with the library to get to it. There's a ton of free stuff in there. Even if you don't have access to it, it's not a deal breaker because you can sometimes do an interlibrary loan through your library. You have some customizable search strategies that are fantastic. We talked about those last time. But you do also, one of the cons is you need to know how to use those strategies. So you have to think about that. You have to be a savvy searcher. So another reason, just to quickly demonstrate, why use Google Scholar versus Google. Let's say you had this question about meta leadership and what is meta leadership and are organizations effectively using it to empower teams to influence change? Let's say if you got this question. So maybe first of all you're trying to answer the question, well, what is meta leadership? And just a little bit of background, because if you've never heard about meta leadership before, meta leadership is a framework and practice method. It's designed to provide guidance, direction, and momentum across organizational lines, and it develops into a shared course of action and purpose among people and agencies that appear to be doing very different work. So like, say between a library and the mayor's office, different things like that, you could use meta leadership. It was first established starting with the September 11th attacks, because you think about all those multiple agencies and organizations that are preparing for response and recovery. Meta leadership reframes the practice of leadership. It provides a comprehensive organizing framework for understanding and integrating the many facets of leadership. It catalyzes collaborative activity, and it improves function and performance across organizational and sector boundaries. I think it would be a great thing for libraries to look at. There's three people involved kind of as roles in this process. The person of the meta leadership, they have self-knowledge, awareness, and regulation. They develop high self-awareness, self-knowledge, and self-regulation, and they build the capacity to confront fear and lead themselves and others out of the emotional basement to higher levels of thinking and functioning. There's the situation, which is discerning the context for leadership. And then there's the connectivity, fostering positive, productive relationships. So if you have a chance, go and look at meta leadership. I think it would be something great for libraries. So that's just a little bit about meta leadership. And so if you're kind of at first just trying to find out what is meta leadership, and you just do a search for meta leadership, if you go to Google, you have 40,400,000 hits. If you go to Google Scholar, you have 432. And these are all going to be longer articles. Of course, Google is going to give you a bunch of information that you can get a quick definition, but that's not the question we had. The question we had was pretty in-depth. We need some real meaty articles to try to answer this question. So we'd probably want to use both. We'd probably want to use Google and Google Scholar, but Google Scholar is going to give us more in-depth kind of scholarly information. So a couple of things I'm going to walk you through. Like I said, this is not necessarily about searching this time. This is more about the mechanics behind Google Scholar and how you can get Google Scholar to help do your work for you, which is fantastic. It can track resources for you and alert you. It can help you keep a library. It can help you do your citations. So first thing, the mechanics. How do you set up a Google Scholar account? I'm going to walk you through when you don't have an account, how you get to it when you have an account, and like I said, there's a lot of features where you do not have to have a Google Scholar account, and I'll identify those as we come to them. So when you don't have an account, connect to Google Scholar, either through the web, through your link, whatever it might be. And what you're going to see on the screen, it's the normal screen here. What you're going to look for is over here on the right-hand side, it says sign in. And next, what you're going to do is, once you click on the sign in button, it's going to say enter your email, forgot your email, and so this is where you'd sign in if you had an account, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But what you're going to do instead is you're going to click on create account, and then you're going to click on next. Once you do, it's going to ask you for your first name and last name. You can decide to be anonymous and give it some different name if you want. But for a lot of the later things we're going to do, you do want to kind of use your real name, especially if you're going to set up an author profile and different things like that. You can pick a username, and then you want to pick a login and password. Then you're going to click on next. I'm trying to click on next right now. And then once you do, it's going to welcome you to Google. You can decide to enter your phone number, your date of birth, and your gender, but you don't have to. Then you're going to click on next. And it's going to give you a really long privacy and terms document that I suggest that you read and look through. It's very long. And then you want to click on I agree. Once you do, you will now have a Google account, not just for Google Scholar, but for all Google services. And if you look over here to the top right corner where the arrow is, you'll notice that there's a little circle with a person in it. That means that you are signed in. If you're doing Google Scholar or any Google projects or products and you don't see that, that means you're not signed in. So that's what you do if you don't have a Google Scholar account. Now, if you do, it's just a simple activity of signing in. You can do it through Google Scholar. If you're already logged into Gmail, all you have to do is navigate over to Google Scholar itself, and you'll already be signed in. Now, if you're not signed in to any Google services, again, all you have to do is click on the sign in right here. It's going to ask you for your username and password. It's already found me because I was logged in previously. And then you're going to click on next. And then you'll see, like as before, there's the little person icon, and you are logged in. So how do you get started with some of these great services that Google provides for you that will alert you to new things, that will track for you? How do you get all that started? So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, So we set up our accounts, or you already had an account. So what we want to do first is we're going to look at Google Scholar setting, and we're going to set up research alerts. And what that means, a research alert is when anything new on that our search finds, our search that we set to have Google Scholar alert us about, anything that it finds, it will send us an email about anything new. So how do you do that? So the first thing we want to do is we actually want to do a search. So I'm going to click on, again, with my search with Meta Leadership. So here's my search, Meta Leadership. I'm going to do my search. Click on the search button here. And then you'll see that it's done a search here. It's found about 444 items. I know that I'm logged in because the little person icon's here at the top. When you do a search, you have some options here. Again, you can edit your search. You can choose the different years. You could do a better search than just Meta Leadership. You could do and teams. Actually, you don't have to type the word and, but you could do teams. You could do all kinds of different things for your search. But I'm just going to do the generic Meta Leadership. And I'm going to click on this button here that's highlighted. It says Create Alert, where the arrow is. Once you do that, you'll see it says Alert Query in Title Meta Leadership. What does that mean? We talked last time about search shortcuts. So in title means that it's actually in the title of the article. And I may or may not want that there. So I could actually edit it right here to say anywhere that they find Meta Leadership with the hyphen between them, just like this. I don't care if it's in the title. Yeah, I can edit it right here at this point before I save it. Some other things I could do that I did do is I put it in quotes because I want Meta Leadership just like that. I could do a search with the or with meta Leadership, all one word. I could exclude things, like I don't want things on medical, which is the minus sign. I could include things because I definitely want military. I could do a plus sign with the military. If there's a specific author I'm looking for, I could do author colon. That was one of the search shortcuts we had last time. And then also one of the ones we liked last time was the word around, all in capital letters with a number in parentheses. So I could type around, all in capital letters, and then like 3, and then the word teams. And that would find Meta Leadership within 3 words of teams. So those are all search shortcuts that we talked about last time. But you could put any of those in there, or you could completely change your search at that point. This is a case where you don't have to have a Google account. You can type any email in here. And so that's something that's going to alert you and it's going to send you an email. You have the option of 10 results or 20 results. And then what you would do is click on Create Alert. Now this is opposite of what Google Alerts does. These are the only options. Google Alerts has the option of, once a day, blogs. You have different types of resources you can select. You can select a different language if you want. In Google Scholar last time we talked about how to set your language, so you know how to do that. You can also, in Google, you can talk about the region. You can only say just the best results. And then you can click your email. So we don't have any of those options in Google Scholar. I hope that they're coming one day, but they're not here yet. And then once you click on it, you'll notice down here this phrase, sample results since 2019. No results found for Meta Leadership in the title. Well, you may be thinking, well, we just did a search and we found a ton of things with Meta Leadership in the title. What's going on? It's not searching what has already been found in Google Scholar. It's only going to find things from 2019 to the present. And for my topic, which is pretty small, remember we only saw 444 articles, there's not going to be a huge update. I'm only going to get it every once in a while. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So if you're expecting it to find a bunch of new stuff for you, for me it's not. Now if you did something like diabetes, or if you're looking for something like a psychological condition, or a legal case, or something about, military or Trump, those are all going to get more updated than my topic. So just something to think about. If you don't get an alert in your email, nothing's wrong. It just hasn't, a scholarly article hasn't been published. And the other thing to consider is the scholarly publishing process. It takes quite a while for a thesis or an article to be published. So if you're not getting anything, you haven't done anything wrong. It just means that Google Scholar is not alerting you because there's nothing new. Okay, so you can create an alert, and then once you do that, this is what the screen looks like. And you click Create Alert again. I'm asking it for up to 20 results. And this is my search right here, in title, meta leadership, because I didn't change it. And then alerts are sent, like I said, after things are added to Google Scholar. If you want to edit a research alert, if you're still on this screen and you're like, oh, I did the search wrong, I don't want that, you can actually cancel it right from the alert that you just saved. And then you could actually click on Create Alert and create a brand new alert right from here. Let's say it's been a couple days and you want to change your alert. All you have to do, you have to be logged in, you have to have an account at this point to do this part. I'll show you another way to cancel your alert if you do not have an account. But we're logged in. We're going to click on the three solid lines right here. This is where a lot of your options are. Once you do, you're going to get a new screen. And you're going to see under your Google Scholar screen that there's a little button that says Alerts. Click on the button, and then what you're going to see is your alerts are going to come up just like we saw before. And then all you have to do is click on Cancel. Again, you can create a new alert here without having to do a search if you know your search shortcuts. Now, what if you did not sign up for a Google account and you wanted to cancel your alert? All you have to do to cancel your alert if you don't have an account is look at the bottom of the email that you got with your newest list of articles and click on Unsubscribe. That's all you have to do if you don't have an account. Okay, so if you want to, again, like we talked about in the beginning, set up an alert for a specific citation. Let's say you're an author or there's this key research that you want to track because it's a medical condition or it's a court case or it's something that's really important to you, your family, a patron, a faculty member, whatever it might be. There is a way that you can actually track a particular title. So back when I worked for Stanford University and I was working towards getting promoted and tenure and things like that, one of the requirements was that you needed to publish for published scholarly publications. So one of the articles I wrote talked about tying the use of electronic resources to academic success. So the title of the article was Proving Our Worth, the Impact of Electronic Resource Usage on Academic Achievement. And so it was a really interesting article. I got to partner with another faculty member named Ed Sherry and somebody from Institutional Effectiveness called Tyler Evans. So very exciting time. We got published. And so in academia, a lot of times in order to be promoted or get tenure, you have to demonstrate that your work has influence and it's important. So you want to track an article. Also, like I said, not just in academia, but if there's a particular article you want to see when it's mentioned again because it's important to your research, legal, medical, whatever it might be. You can actually follow and see every time that article or thesis or whatever it might be is cited. So it's a good way to track that. So to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to search for that particular title that you know, or you've done a search and you found a really good article. You can still do this. You don't have to know the title, but you've discovered it some way. What you're going to do is you are going to, here's the article here, you're going to click on the Cited By button. So here it says cited by 13 people. So we've had 13 other people cite our article. So when you click on Cited By, again, which is right here, what's going to happen is on the right-hand side where all of our options are again, you're going to see Create Alert. So just like we created the alert before, it's going to do the same thing, but it's going to look a little bit different. So let me show you. I'm going to click on the Create Alert, and then what happens is you'll see the alert query looks a little bit different. It's got the title of the article, and it says New Citations. It's going to email me here. I want up to 20 results, which is probably not going to happen because it's probably not going to be cited that often. And then you click on Create Alert. Same thing, there's not really any articles or anything that has happened since 2019, at least according to Google Scholar. But in the future, I'll get alerted. So now, if you look at my list of Google Alerts, I've got the one on meta leadership, And then I've got the one on the article that I'm tracking. And you just click on Create Alert. Okay, so let's say now we've tracked our article, but you want to follow a specific author. So one of the authors that I really like her work, there's several librarians. This one is Meredith Farkas, and she's done a ton of research on instructional design, information literacy. She's done some computer stuff. Anyways, I really like her, and I like to read her stuff. And so I did a search for her. I didn't know if she had what's called a user profile, which is an author profile. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, how you can make your own. But she's got an author profile. So this is her name. It's got her name, her university, how many times she's been cited, which is over 1,000. And her position has been verified by her university, which is important. And we'll talk more about that later. So I can click on her name, but if she did not have a user profile, I could still type the author's name, and instead I would just click on Create Alert. But since she's got a profile, I'm going to click on her name, and what you've got is this fantastic overview of this author. You've got her email, she's got a homepage, you can see some of the titles that she's written, who she's written with, so these are some of her titles. You can actually get to some of them, or you may have to, again, go back to your library. These are some of her co-authors. And then she's got some information here we'll talk a little bit about later that talks about her influence and her rank of her publications. Now, if she's somebody I want to follow, all I have to do is click on the follow button right here. And what happens next is you get some options. You can get just new articles by this author. You can get new citations by this author. Or you can get new articles related to what she does and publishes. You can check one of them. You can check all three. If you check all three of them, especially the last one, you're going to get a lot of articles. And then all you have to click on is put in your email. Again, you don't have to have a Google account to do this. And then you click on Done. So I'm going to follow her, so I'm hoping to get some emails about some of her new articles. Okay, so that's how you can track an article, how you can track an author. Now, one of the things that's really exciting about Google Scholar, not that everything is in Google Scholar, but you can actually use it as kind of a citation management system and store your citations. So you may still need to have some other citation management system because Google Scholar is not going to store things that aren't in Google Scholar. It's only going to give you things that are in Google Scholar, and as we talked about in the beginning, not everything is in Google Scholar. But they've got this great thing called My Library. So what is it? Google Scholar Library is a personal collection of articles. You can save it right off the search page. You can organize them by topic, which is a label, and we'll talk more about that in a second. And you can actually search within Google Scholar in your library to find your article you're looking for anytime. And you can decide what goes in it, what you delete out of it. You get everything that comes with Google Scholar, citing articles, the related articles. It will format your citations. If you set it up correctly, there will be a link to your university subscription if you set that up like we talked about last time in your library links. We'll talk more about, and you can look at that if you'd like. And you can fill it up with the articles that you want. And you can also import all of those articles into your public Google Scholar profile as well. And you can see the articles that they cite too. So how do you get there? How do you set it up? To do this, how do you set up your library? How do you put articles in your library? So you'll need to be logged into Google first. And then you need to do a search. So I just did my search on meta leadership again. This is just a slide that kind of explains what's in the record. So, you've got the title. If there's a PDF, it shows you. If you click on this item here, more, it's going to find it in the library for you, or it's going to have some other options such as HTML. This related articles link here will find other articles. Sorry, this link right here will find other articles. This will find other versions. If, again, you click on the cited by, we talked about that a little bit, that'll find articles that cite this one. The quotation marks here will show you how to cite the article. And last but not least, but the most important for what we're talking about, this little star button, if you click on it, it's going to change colors and it will add it to your library. So I'm going to add this article to my library. Now I would need to be logged in before I did that. But if I go to find my library, how do I do that? I can click on my library, which is right over here on the top of my screen, or I can use the three little bars right here, and I can click on that. Once you do, you're going to see the button for my library. So either way is going to get you to my library. And like I said, you do need to be logged into Google at this point. You will have to have an account. So when I click on my library, there's several options here. I'm going to walk you through each one of them. You'll see right here the button at the top is a Google search for just your library. So you can, if you have a ton of articles in here, you could search through it and you could find the articles that you need for your library. So for instance, if I did a search for rescuing, if I just typed in rescuing, I could do a search and it would find the article rescuing for me. You can also, you're within your library, you can look at your trash. If you deleted something and you don't want to delete it, you can take it out of there. You can empty your trash. You can also look at the different time ranges. Like you had an article that was from 2015 or earlier. You can change the date. And this is just your library, not all of Google Scholar. So that's how you find an article. To select and move through the Google Scholar My Library, you do have some options. Let's say you put an article in here, like this rescuing one, and it really doesn't apply to, you looked at it, it really doesn't apply to what you're looking at. You've got your article in here. In some cases, like I said, you'll actually have the link to the PDF. If you set up your library links, it will also reflect that your library has it, and again, you can click on it and get to the library. So it doesn't store the article itself, but it will store the link to the article. Well, let's say you didn't want this rescuing leadership from Humpty Dumpty anymore. All you'd have to do is select it. There's little boxes besides each article, but they're a little faint. So this one that says rescuing, I just selected it, and then all you have to do is click on delete. It's going to go into your trash folder. So if you decide later, oh, I really need that, you can go to your trash folder and you can actually undelete it. Okay, so that's how you can delete articles and how you can add articles. The next thing you can do to help organize your library is you can do something which is called create labels. So what you can do is you can select your items right here, and then you can click on create new label. And I don't have any labels over here because at the time I had not started creating labels. So what you can do is create new, and I typed the label Meta Leadership. Before you click on labels or create new, you want to select all the articles that you want to have that label. So it's very similar to having a folder, okay? And so that's going to be real helpful if you're trying to stay organized, if you have a lot of topics. If you don't have to do labels because you can just search your library, right, and find the articles you need. So you click on the ones you want, create new, and then you can click on type Meta Leadership and click on create. And you'll see here at the bottom it says 6 articles added to the new label Meta Leadership. You can also not select any of these. Click on labels and click on manage labels. Maybe you had a typo in the title of the label you created, and you can actually fix your label title. Okay, so here, when I talk about labels, now I've got Meta Leadership and I've got electronic resources and library success because that's something I track. So when I click on electronic resources and library success, you'll see all of these articles that have that label come up. Again, I could just search it if I needed to. We've got the search my library button. The other option I wanted to mention here that I don't go into a lot is the edit button. The edit button, you can select the articles that you want. The edit button, what that does is that allows you to fix the citation, not in Google Scholar, just in your library. So if you're going to do a citation, and let's say rescuing leadership is all caps, that's not going to be right for your citation. So you can click on edit and you can fix the citation information. May not need it that often, but I just mention it in case you do. Okay, again, so there's our labels that we have, And now we have the button that comes up Manage Labels because we have labels. So we can fix those or we can delete them. It's not going to delete the resources you have in there. It's just going to delete your labels. Okay, the other thing that people really like and are really excited about is that Google Scholar can help you do your citations. So one of the things that's here on the screen, there's a little button that says Export. So again, you can see how powerful this is for doing research, for storing your research, for getting it to do your citations, for tracking topics. It's really exciting. It's really great that Google does all of these functions to help us with research. So to export your citations, you can do them one by one, of course. We can just click on the quote mark and get the citation for each one of these individually. However, if you want to get all of your citations, for instance, if I wanted all of my citations on meta leadership, I could first go to labels, which is not showing here, but I could click on meta leadership, get all my meta leadership articles. I could select all of them in the checkbox and then click on export. When I click on export, this is what happens. You'll get some choices. So you have the choice of bib text, you have RefWorks, you have Reference Manager, EndNote, ORCs, comma separated values. The other option you have that Google Scholar doesn't mention, which is kind of a third-party plugin, and what I use a lot, is actually Zotero. Because, like we talked about, Google Scholar is going to be great for what's in Google Scholar, but what if you have other sources that you want to have and you want to maintain in your library? You're not going to be able to add those from other databases unless they're already in Google Scholar. And like we talked about, not every single thing is in Google Scholar, so you may need to have a separate citation management system. This is great. This may be all that you need, but me as a librarian, that's not going to be enough for me. So what I might do is select all of these, use my Zotero plugin, and then Zotero would harvest these and put it in my Zotero citation management system. So, but it does do quite a bit of different formats. If you do RefWorks, it's great because you can import everything into RefWorks, which is fantastic. Okay, now if you are an author, you have a faculty member that's an author, you have somebody come into the public library that's a lawyer or doctor, and they've written some articles and they want to set up a profile and make it public, it's very simple. Again, you do have to have a Google account and you do have to be logged in. So I'm going to walk you through this. So we looked before, what is an author profile? Let me go back and I'll just show it to you real quick. What does that look like? If you remember way back here, this is an author profile. So if you want to set those up, if you haven't published anything, you can still set up a profile. You just won't have any publications and you won't have any statistics. And you can decide to make your profile public or not public. And I'll show you how to do that. So here's all of our labels again in our library. So let me get back to the author profile. Went too far. Here we go. Okay, so again, you will have to have a Google Scholar account and you will have to be logged in. And I will say that this has to be kind of authentic because when you create an author profile, you can't be Daisy Duke. You have to have a real name and you have to have a real email because that's what's going to display. Although I guess you could create a fake account, but you'd have probably no way of verifying your account with the university. So to create an author profile, somebody's walked into the library, it's a faculty member, it's you, and you need to have a profile for publication, for your tenure, for your promotion, all those different things that you might need a profile for. So there's two ways to get to your profile. There's a great button right here that says My Profile. If you don't see it there, for some reason it's not showing up, you can click on the three little lines here. And if you click on the three little lines, it's going to show you again the link to author profile. So what you're going to do is you're going to fill out the required information. So what's here? What do you have to have? So in order for Google Scholar to track citations and put it on your profile for you, which is fantastic, right? It'll track your citations that are new. It'll track when somebody cited you, and it'll also give you a link to on your profile to related works. Just like remember when we saw we wanted to follow Meredith Farkas, we had those different options. We could get her new citations, we could get place the notification of when she was cited, And then we could also get any of her related topics that other people wrote about. So Google Scholar will also do that for your author profile. It will add all these things for you over time. Okay, so what do you need to set it up? You have to enter your name. You have to enter your affiliation, which for me, I'm an adjunct for the University of Alabama. And then you have to enter an email for verification. It can't just be your Gmail, it's got to be a university or organization email that you can get to. Your Gmail might work, I haven't tried that, but you are going to get an email at that address and you are going to have to verify it from that email. Okay? Then you can type up to 5 areas of interest. So for me, it's libraries. I'm also an editor. I'm very interested in research methods and electronic resources and also information literacy. You're limited to 5. And then if you have a homepage, I don't really have a homepage. I guess I could put my library's homepage there. Um, then you're going to click on Next. Once you click on Next, you're going to have to first go to the email and verify it, or none of these options are going to come up. You're going to have to wait. So once I've gone to my email and I've clicked on Verify, it takes me back to this screen, and it's done a search for Stephanie Rollins. It's done a search and it says, hey, are these your articles? So you self-identify which articles are yours. So for me, I've got the article we talked about earlier, Proving Our Worth, the Impact of Electronic Resource Usage on Academic Performance. Yep, that's me. And there's also an article demonstrating our value, tying use of electronic resources to academic access. Those are under my name here, both of those, and I said, yes, that's me. And if you were to scroll down a little bit, you'd see another one that says Stephanie Havron Rollins, and this is actually my dissertation. So those are both me. So I have three publications, which is not a lot, but it's not required of me in my job now, although I would like to keep publishing. It's just not something that is a priority for me right now. I'd rather do webinars. So it says Google Scholars has 3 articles for me. Those are my 3 articles, or mine's a thesis, but it just says articles. You click on the arrow here. Once you do, it's going to say, okay, do you want to automatically have your new articles found for you and added to your profile? And I said yes. The other option you have is, no, I want you to email me for review, because I don't know if you saw, but on the previous screen, when it looked up Stephanie Rollins, it found Stephanie M. Rollins. And that's a Spanish title I can't really pronounce, and it's really small. But anyways, so those aren't me. So you may want to say, email me updates for review so you can make sure that they got the right Stephanie Rollins. Now you can also decide if you want your profile public or not. And I do. So I said, yes, I want my profile public. If I didn't, I would uncheck this. You click on done, and then what happens is you get this beautiful profile. You can pick a picture if you'd like. It says, and this is just kind of the edit screen, which you wouldn't see once it was live. But you can look for Dr. Stephanie Rollins in Google Scholar, and you'll see the profile without the editing marks. From here, I could edit it, because before it just had Stephanie Rollins, so I put my title there. You can see I've been verified via email through Alabama. I like teaching, editing, information literacy, technology, and libraries. So I went back and actually changed my categories here. These are my publications. Here, I can add one. So these are things you can look at. And then one of the things we'll talk about in a little bit is here's my impact. Now, I don't have a lot of publications, so that makes sense that I wouldn't have a huge impact yet. But one of my citations has been cited 13 times. And if you look here, I don't see it here, but on Meredith's, you could see how many times her articles are cited. So that's how you set up an author profile, and you make it public. Okay, so just briefly, I know in a lot of public libraries that you don't do what's called metrics. So I just want to talk you through that quickly and why it's important. Sometimes it can be a very political matter, because in terms of promotion and tenure in academic libraries, you need to track your influence in your community of practice. So it's called metrics, and sometimes it's called alt metrics, because there's other ways of measuring besides just publications, and they're including that now, which I think is great. So what are metrics? And there's Google Scholar metrics too. So Google Scholar metrics provide an easy way for authors to quickly look at the visibility and influence of recent articles in scholarly publications. And not just authors, but you as a person looking at their research. You can see their impact and you can see, okay, well, they haven't really published that much, but that one article has been cited 80 times. So you can kind of get a sense for their impact and whether or not they're a scholar in the field, they're just starting out, things like that. So it also helps add to your evaluation of the author. But for authors, it can help you see the impact of your publications, how many times it's been cited, kind of our impact on the field or the discipline. And so what that means is, what are metrics? What does that mean? So what is measured is you use the number of times your publications are cited by other researchers. And that kind of is one way to determine your impact or your influence. And there's a lot of different algorithms for looking at influence. These are just three that are displayed on the Google author profile. So the first one is the H-index. This is kind of the most widely used one. It measures both productivity and impact of an author's scholarly output. So there's tools for calculating your H-index, and they include Web of Science and Google Scholar. And I'll show you what all this looks like on the author profile in a moment. So the H-index is the number of papers with the citation number. So there's a kind of a formula here. So for example, a scientist with an H-index of 37 has 37 papers cited at least 37 times. That's a lot. There's a G-index, and this was proposed in 2006 by Leo Egg as an alternate to the H-index. It adds more weight to highly cited articles, which would make sense to me. The G-index is calculated in this way. Given a set of articles ranked in decreasing order of the number of citations that they received, the G-index is the unique largest number such that the top G articles received together at least G2 citations. So that means the number of times they're cited. Much simpler is the I-10 index. And this is a very simple measure of impact only used by Google Scholar, but I really like it. It's simple. And it's the number of publications with at least 10 citations. That's so much easier to understand, right? So what does that look like on an author profile? So before I get to that, I meant to mention this. If you're trying to figure out if you want to publish, or you're a librarian and you're trying to figure out what are the most scholarly publications in that field, if you don't have access to Web of Science, this is another way to look at that. So to get to it, to get to metrics period, you click on the three bars here, and there's a little button that says metrics. And you can drill down into any subject area. Here, I've just gone to categories, drilled down to social sciences, and then I've drilled down to library and information sciences. So if you look here, these are where you want to publish. And if you look, they've got the H-index and the median. And this tells you, okay, if I'm looking to publish, I really want to get into JASIS because that's the top one. But if you look down here at number 9, and I'll bring this up again, you'll see there's Library High Tech. That's not a bad one either. But these are the top scholarly journals in our field that have the highest impact and influence. And you can do this for any subject. So again, if you're a librarian or want to show a patron, well, what's the best articles to look for my topic? These are going to be the most considered, most scholarly, most peer-reviewed articles, and the highest ranked, the ones with most influence. So what about our author? How do these things show up? So if we go back to Meredith Farkas, I didn't use me because I only have 3 publications right now. If you look over here to the right-hand side, you'll see we've got some things here. We've got the H-index and we've got the I-10 index. They don't use the G-index here. But I just wanted to mention that so you know that there are different kinds. So if you look here, she's got 1,011 times she's been cited. Since 2014, she's been cited 454 times. Her H-index is 11, and her I-10 index is 12. So 12 times she's been cited at least, I think 10 times was the formula. But again, so she's kind of an influential person in our field. And you can see it ranks it on the different years, her influence, which is fantastic. One of the things I wanted to mention, though, remember that list here that had all the top publications? And we saw that number 9 was Library High Tech. If you look at Meredith's profile, where was it? There's one here. This one, Participatory Technologies, Pedagogy 2.0 and Information Literacy. You'll see that's published in Library High Tech. So she's got some pretty high, um, scholarly, impactful journals that she's published in. So just in case that's something you need to know, it's good for faculty, it's good for an academic person that has to publish, but it's also good just for general librarian knowledge because it can show you this person's impact and whether or not they may or may not be credible. It helps towards that. You can see if there's somebody who's knowledgeable in their field, which she obviously is, and you can also see what journals and magazines are considered scholarly in the field. So it's just something extra that you may or may not know about. Okay, so last but not least, I want to talk to you about this Google Scholar button. And most of the people I've talked about have never heard about it. So it's a plugin. It will work in any browser. And as you're doing a search, whether it's in Bing or DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine is your favorite, it's a little button that you can click on, and it will also show you the top 3 results according to your search. Now, if your search is not great, your results in Google Scholar won't be great, and that's okay. But what is the Google Scholar button? So again, like I said, it looks up scholarly articles as you browse the web in whatever search engine you're in. It's an extension that adds a browser button for easy access to Google Scholar from any web page. So you can be on any web page. You could pull up a web page and click on that button and it'll find articles related to that web page, not just a search you do. It'll find full text on the web or in your university library if you've set up your library links, remember, and you're logged in. You can select the title of the paper you're looking at and click the Scholar button to find it. You can transfer the search that you have on your screen to Google Scholar, and you can click on full screen. It will then launch Google Scholar. Don't worry, I'm going to show you what all of this looks like. I'm just kind of talking you through what you're going to see. You can format references by using the quote marks, which is awesome, and it'll pop up and show you the citations. You can also click on the library links. Again, if you've set that up, you may need to log in with your login and password, unfortunately. You can also look up U.S. case law. There's a button at the bottom I'll show you that will let you also look up U.S. case law related to your search. So what does all this look like? I'm going to show you. So here's the Google Scholar button that I have. I've already installed it, and I'm going to walk you through how to install it in just a second. But what does it do? What does it look like? So I've done a search. This time I've done a search for military intervention in Liberia. That's a book I'm currently editing. It's about 200 years and the U.S.'s involvement in Liberia. And so I just wanted to do a search on it to see what I could find. So I've done my search in Google. I could do it in Bing. I could pull up the government of Liberia's homepage. And then all I have to do is click over here. It looks like a little blue diamond. And then what happens is you'll see, oops, I skipped ahead. Okay, so when you click on the little button, and I'm going to make this bigger, you'll see this little screen here. I'll make it bigger so you can see it in a second. So I typed in U.S. military intervention in Liberia. And then what happened is, when I clicked on the blue button, it dropped down and it has the first 3 results if I had done a Google Scholar search for it. So what's here? I'm going to walk you through it and I'm going to make it bigger so you can see it. So here is the little short screen that was in my browser. It's the same thing. It's right here. And then what I get is the first 3 titles. These options here are just nothing to worry about. That's my browser button. The only one you need to know about is the blue diamond here, which is the Google Scholar button. So when I did my search in regular Google, it did my search in Google Scholar, U.S. military intervention in Liberia. And it found 3 resources. Actually, I think there's one more down here, but you can't see it. Intervention, the use of American military force in the post-Cold War world. Civil War and collective intervention in Liberia. Now that one sounds good. It's cited. The other thing is you can see the cited by. This is cited by 72 people. The first one is 382, but it's not quite on my topic, but I could look at it. And then the third one here actually has the link to the PDF, which looks like it might be free. But if you, again, you could have your library link there and you could go in that way. Now this one is a citation that doesn't have any library link. And when I click on it, it's going to take me right to the journal article at Taylor and Francis, which is great, except for the problem could be is that I don't know if, as a patron, if I have access to Taylor and Francis or not. So sometimes it may take some backtracking to your library listing of serials to see if you have this magazine. Again, if I programmed my library links in here, it may have pulled it up. It may not. So that's something you need to think about and may require an extra step of instruction with your patrons, that it doesn't always give you the article directly or the link to the article directly. But again, I could do interlibrary loan if I don't have access. I could go back to the library and check to see if we have that article. But again, that's something that might be a higher level step that most of our patrons don't take the time to do. The other thing is, if you look on the screen, there's some options here. If you look this button that looks like full screen, if you click on it, it's going to open Google Scholar with your search. So you don't have to Google Scholar and retype anything. It's going to directly open your search. The next thing I wanted to show you is that for each one of these, it will, if you click on the quote marks, it will give you the citation in all the different formats. And you can actually click down here at BibTeX, EndNote, RefMan, RefWorks, and it will export it into that citation management system for you. Down here, I didn't show it to you, but this little wheel setting bar, that will take you to case law. You can change your search up here where it says U.S. military intervention in Liberia if you're still in Google, and it's still going to do Google Scholar for you without having to open Google Scholar. So how do you install this nifty diamond button that's going to help you as you search? You may want to install it on your library's computers. It just depends. On some things, it will not work. If I'm on a military network at work, it will not allow me to install this plugin. So you may want to check to see if your computer system will let you install plugins. But to install it, it's very simple. All you have to do is click on the three bars here. And once you do, you're going to see a little button that says Settings. Once you click on Settings, it'll launch a new window, and there's a little thing that says Button. It doesn't tell you what it does. It doesn't say Google Scholar button. It just says Button. So all you have to do is once you click on Button, it's going to give you some instructions for installing it in Internet Explorer, Edge, Chrome, Firefox. It works with any browser. I haven't checked on a Mac computer, but I think it would be fine with Safari. I haven't checked on mobile. It may be fine, but I'm not sure that it's going to work since it's a plugin. When you click on the button, you get this next screen. It says Bibliography, Google Scholar, look around, and then way down here at the bottom, it says Install Scholar button to look up papers as you browse. And you click on Save. And that will install the button in your browser. One last thing, if you would like to have Google Scholar in person, all you have to do is email Swiftlin. We can do both sections of Google Scholar in one day in person with handouts and with teaching materials and kind of like a workbook that you can take back to your staff or use for your patrons or for you to do a in-person workshop maybe for your patrons. So please email Swiftlin and let them know. Do you guys have any questions for me? Thank you so much for letting me talk to you about kind of the mechanics of Google Scholar and how you can use it to set up alerts, kind of set up an account, how you can track a specific paper or author, how you can create your own Google library and keep your articles in it and maintain that with labels. You can delete and add articles, how you can make it do citations for you now that you've had your library set up. If you're a published author, how you can create an author profile, how metrics might help you or your faculty or even somebody that just comes in the public library, and then this great new Google Scholar button. So thank you for allowing me to share that with you today.
Thank you, Stephanie, for an informative webinar. Attendees, if you enjoyed this webinar, we ask that you join us on January 18th for Stephanie's next webinar, Floating Collections, Sink or Swim. As always, we encourage you to keep an eye on the Swiftland CE calendar, your Swiftland Facebook page, or your message from the listserv. Thank you everyone for attending and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you, Stephanie.